Welcome back to another episode of Thanks for Coming Back. I'm your host, Dr. Latasha Nelson, and today we're honored to have an incredible guest, Michele Lance. Michele is a career strategist, international speaker, and women's advocate with over 26 years of leadership experience. She's helped over 1,500 individuals reach their full potential, land their dream roles, and earn more without sacrificing who they are. As the founder of MC Career Solutions, Michele's mission is to help women build confidence, leverage their strengths, and break barriers to leadership. In today's episode, Michele is going to share her insights on career advancement, personal branding, and what it really means to lead authentically. But this episode isn't just for women. Men, I encourage you to listen closely too. Michelle's strategies are universal, and her experiences can help anyone looking to become a stronger leader, support the women in their lives, and create inclusive, authentic workplaces. So, whether you're an emerging leader or seasoned professional looking for fresh inspiration, this episode is packed with wisdom that will help you elevate your leadership game. Let's dive in. Now, Michelle, I love your background, and I would love it if you just kind of start by telling us a little bit more about yourself.
So I'll tell you, I'm one of those people that started from the ground up. My previous life was at a Fortune 20 company. I worked literally from an inventory specialist to executive level and everything in between. And so my passion has always been around women, even when I was in my corporate environment. Women tended to gravitate towards me. And it's just something that I've been passionate about is helping women land their dream jobs, whatever their case may be. It's a passion I've had for years.
Now, I love this because you've built a whole career around helping women land their dream jobs without compromising who they are. And that can be tricky. What are some of the
Yes.
key steps to balancing authenticity with career advancement, especially in environments where women in particular might feel pressured to conform?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. First of all, let me say this. Authenticity is your superpower. But you can't be authentic if you don't know what your values are, you don't know what's important to you. You have to identify, I call it the asset checklist, right? You got to have that checklist of what makes you unique, what are you passionate about, what drives you, because that all in turn really combined goes into your authenticity. So I will say it is very tricky. I was one of those people that worked in a Fortune 20 company. I thought I had to conform in mostly male dominated roles around me. And I said one day through my coach, I don't like being who I'm not. And that's where authenticity kind of evolved for me. So it's important that you have the courage once you do your assets, right? You know what your values are and you align them with the objectives of the organizations because that's what it takes. And adaptability. So women sometimes think that they can be authentic and they don't have to adapt to things, right? We still have to adapt. You're staying true to your course, but you still have to adapt to whatever's going around in your environment, in your work environment. And I think lead with purpose, right? So that ties directly into authenticity. And so people will follow those that are authentic. There is a study that shows that women or men that lead authentically get 27% more productivity. That's a big number when you're looking at what the companies are doing. So I think integrity, courage, adaptability, lead with purpose, and empathy. Most people think I wouldn't say that, but empathy is so important. People will not follow those that are not authentic. And if you don't lead with empathy and align with other people that are on your team or in a project that you're on, it shows. And so, again, I'm going to say this authenticity is your unique superpower. Leverage it and use that.
Now, there's a couple of things you touched on here, and I want to circle back to two things in particular. Courage, because I'm thinking of aspiring leaders, early career folks who may not know what that journey could look like. And I imagine, especially as a woman of color, like there are other dynamics in play to build up to the courage that you're describing. And so, what I heard was you described an act of courage there because you said you went to your leader and said, I do not like being who I'm not. right?
Right.
That in and of itself is extremely vulnerable and courageous. Can you share a little bit more about the journey that you had to go through to build that courage to ultimately say, this is who I am, these are the values I stand on, and this is what I'm going to pursue while being adaptable?
Yeah. First, I'm going to say it's important that you get a mentor, right? Because that's a person that's going to be in your corner that's going to cheer you on. And it doesn't necessarily have to be someone from the organization, right? So, me having a mentor kind of changed the perspective of how I saw things. And I'll put it in real terms. When I first started, when my first promotion, there were people coming up to me saying, "Oh, you're so lucky. You're a woman, you got this promotion."
Mm.
Or just subtle things. I wouldn't say that subtle, but and other subtle things that are out there. And so first find a mentor, right? So that you could build your framework. And a lot of it has to do with confidence. And confidence comes within yourself, but you got to identify that. Small wins are big wins. What I learned from my mentors, being authentic is one thing, but celebrate those small wins. Find the lane that you're passionate about because that's when people are going to see your true authentic self. And so I was passionate about employee development. I was passionate about women. So I went to my boss. I literally said, "Hey, I think I have a concept that will work for women." And so it started with me doing something I'm passionate about because nothing's worse than being authentic in a role that you're not happy in. Right?
Nice.
So find projects and things that inspire you, that get you excited about what you do, and people will see your value and they see your worth. So to any new young leader, I would say tack on a project. It doesn't have to be big. I understand everybody's really busy, but get a small project that gets you motivated because that's how you're seen in a different light. And once you're seen in that light, it gives you credibility. And credibility gives you the opportunity to go to somebody and say, "Hey, this is how I feel about you fill in the blanks."
Nice, nice. Now, you also touched on the profitability of allowing people to show up authentically. And so I know that there's a lot of uncertainty in the workplace right now. So there might be a lot of people who aren't early career, but are looking for their next opportunities. What should they be looking for within an organization? And I'm thinking specifically around culture. What types of questions? Who should they be asking? What signs should they be looking for that might signal this is an organization who will allow me to show up as my authentic self?
Yeah, I think first it's like find someone who looks like you. I know that sounds crazy, but there are leaders, not a lot, but there are leaders out there who may look like you. They're the people that you want to get to pick their brains to figure out, like, how did you get where you are? Right. So that kind of sets the framework of being authentic. And how do you tackle those new jobs? Is I think that's what you're saying, Latasha, right? Like, how do I get that job
Mhm.
being authentic to myself? So get some insight because I call it sisterhood. Sisterhood is powerful. And in any organization, there is a sisterhood. You may have to search, and it may not be in your channel, but find that sisterhood because that's when you get real talk, right? That's when you get people to tell you, these are the things that I struggle with, but here are some tools that'll help you. And so find that circle of, I call it the sisterhood, networking, whatever that is, because they're going to help you see the path. Secondly, don't follow a title. Follow what you want to do through your authentic self that gets you motivated and inspired. I was a title chaser. And when you just chase titles, it can hold you back until you realize that let me find what I want to do that makes me passionate, that makes me get up in the morning and enjoy what I'm doing. Once you find that, then it all kind of evolves from there.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, I know that you're speaking from experience because you've worked with over 1,500 people in coaching and mentoring, and you've just touched on one of the barriers that we could encounter. And so I
Mhm.
appreciate you saying avoid this pitfall. But what other barriers, or rather, what are some of the biggest barriers preventing women from stepping into leadership roles? and how can they break through those?
Yeah, great question. And I coach a lot of women, and the number one thing is self-doubt. We will doubt ourselves when there's a job opportunity. We may look at the criteria or expectations and say, I only have 5 of the 10. I just don't know if I could do that job. Stop doubting yourself. It all ties into authenticity, right? And so a lot of women have self-doubt and self doubt about how they approach their teams, self doubt about applying for a job, self doubt about what their boss thinks of them or what we get caught up in the self doubt. And really, to overcome self doubt, you gotta celebrate you. And that's something you do. Look in the mirror, say, I'm unstoppable. Whatever that is, you got to get past the self doubt because a man will apply for a job with 3 out of 15. Women won't at 8 out of 10. So we've got to, it's self doubt is the biggest thing that I see. And as I coach women, the first thing they say, it's all levels, Latasha. It's frontline, new managers, middle managers, executives. Everyone has that self doubt. And so you've got to overcome that self doubt in order to move forward and be free of what you truly want to be as an authentic contributor to the organization.
What are some practical steps I can take on a daily basis to work through that self doubt? In addition to positive affirmations, I think that's what I heard you say, I'm unstoppable. What other
Mhm.
things can I start being intentional about if I'm struggling with self doubt?
This is what I kind of coach women every day. Get a piece of paper and say, what did I do great yesterday? What did I accomplish that helped me get to this point or that point? Because oftentimes we do small wins, but we don't recognize them, right? We don't take the opportunity to say, yesterday I did this great. Because self doubt, lack of self confidence, call it what you want, all stems from us not believing in the things that we've done or not trusting ourselves 100%. And it sounds so simple, but I'm telling you, just writing down what you did great. Go to your boss and say, I need some feedback. Can you let me know what I can work on and what I've done good? Because believe me, it's powerful. So it's those little steps that you could take to help overcome self doubt and then doing something that gives you gratification will help you overcome that because when you see a finished product, something that you've worked on a team, when you see those things, it helps build that confidence,
Mhm.
right? I don't think we all go out there saying, I don't want to believe I can't get the job, right? That's not our intention, but it happens. And I think surround yourself with people. You need cheerleaders.
Mhm.
Listen, you got to have cheerleaders. My mom is my cheerleader, right? Whoever your cheerleader is, those are people that can help you overcome that confidence lag that you have. And so over time, it builds and builds. And then next thing you know, you're getting better at self doubt. I don't say it's ever going to go away because we've all experienced it on all levels. It's how do you overcome it? What's keeping me from believing that I could do that job? What's holding me from this criteria when I bring all this skill set? You can learn skills. If you bring your authentic self, doesn't matter what the job says. You come in with, I may not know it all, but I can learn. Be open to learning and growing because that's how you improve self doubt.
I love the idea of writing things down because I think as women, we also tend to forget a lot of what we accomplish. I know in my day to day, I tend to move from one project to the next project, and that's both in my personal life and professional life. And oftentimes it will take someone mentioning, hey, remember when you did XYZ? And I'll go, ooh, you know what? That did happen this year. It might have even happened a few months ago. And it's hard to promote yourself to share what experiences and skills you have when they're not front of mind for you. So I love the idea of writing those things down and referring
Mhm.
to them. I mean, I
Yeah.
imagine that the more you refer to them yourself, the more confident you become. And look at all the things I've achieved. Now, I want to throw another research based sentiment I heard on an HBR podcast for leadership. I heard that there is a perception that with women, you may have most of the qualifications, but if you're missing one or two, an employer might look, especially if you're in role for a promotion, they might look and say, oh, well, so and so has all of these qualifications. They've done amazing work for us, but they're missing this and this. They might need to stay in role a little bit longer. How do I overcome that perception that those few things that I may not have should be determining factors in maybe a promotion or a new role? What types of things should I consider having to do that a male in a similar situation may not have to worry about?
Yeah, that's a great question because I'll tell you, well, one, I mentioned mentors earlier. I think sponsors are very important too because they're going to be in your corner, they're advocating for you, and sponsors are there when sometimes you don't even know that they're there. So I think sponsors are very important to have. And I think you've got to talk to whomever your leader is. Let them know that you're a visionaire. Let them know what your aspirations are. Because a lot of times we don't share everything that we want to do with our leaders, right? You've got to be on point. And when I say on point, meaning know where you want to go. And then I think being a visionaire, and I say visionaire because adaptability is so important in organizations these days because it changes so much. So let them know where your skill sets lie. And if you do see that you have an opportunity, you got to speak up. You'd be surprised at when you go to a leader and say, I need to work on these two things, what they could do for you.
Mhm.
I will always be an advocate for coach because I think leaders are going to get you so far, but a coach will get you further.
Mhm.
But I think you have to be a visionary, know exactly where you want to go, know where your opportunities are in general. And if it's a skill set, you can be taught that skill. And so they've got to feel that confidence. I keep going back to confidence because it really is, Latasha. They can sense that confidence. You are going to set the framework of what you need. Here are the things, and they should be telling you where you have opportunities. If they're not, shame on them. You need to go to them and say, where do I have opportunities?
Mhm.
Here's what I'm doing great because I want to get to this level. What needs to be true?
I love it. Now, everything is changing very quickly. The jobs of today, I don't have a clue what that looks like a few years from now or even a year from
Right.
now, right? There's just so much
Yeah.
really cool disruption. I refer to it as positive disruption, but disruption all the
Yeah.
same. So,
Yeah.
with this in mind, how do you advise women to redefine their dream job in a way that not only aligns with their skills, but also their passions, their personal values, and with some anticipation of what they may have to reskill or upskill in as things change?
Yeah. So first, the whole perception of dream job is not what you traditionally typically know, to your point, right? So a dream job, you really have to, again, do your asset management of self and say, what is going to drive me? And when we don't even know what the jobs are, there are certain fundamental things that you have to be able to adjust adaptability, continuously learning. I think oftentimes when we get in leadership roles, we'll go, oh, got it, learn it, especially in the tech space, especially in with these new roles that are out there. If you're not a student of the business, you're doing yourself a disservice. So the definition of dream job, which before was traditional title, pay, whatever, has significantly changed. Now, your dream job is aligning with what your beliefs are, your values, your family value, whatever those are, right? That's so important that you align with those things. And then as you look at your dream job, you get clarity and it's fluid. Each level, a season that you have in a career, your dream job may shift, and that's okay. Long as you're in tune with what that means to you, and then you'll find a lot of these new jobs, they're not even going to know who the right person is for these jobs. Your role is to make sure that you're continuously learning, you understand the dynamics of change, the importance of adaptability, so that when something comes up, whether you meet the criteria or not, you could be a good fit. Because leadership is the fundamental thing that gets you jobs, not the tactical things that you know. And a lot of people think I've got to know the tactical things. It's more of like, how do you approach as a leader? How do you drive an entire team to change in 20 minutes?
Mhm.
What is that message? How do they believe in you?
And that's with or without a title, right? I think
With or without a title.
so what
So
I'm
important,
seeing is
Natasha.
a lot of organizations are flattening. I think a lot of organizations that have historically been very top heavy are looking at how do I remove these layers? But the expectation isn't that just because there isn't a formal leadership role available that you don't act in the capacity of a leader when you've been entrusted to or when the opportunity presents itself. I think the gap that I see is that you just don't see a lot of investment in developing leaders who don't have titles. So that's something I think has to
I
change.
agree. I
But
agree.
I love what you just said because that means that regardless of company, so let me say this like this, with or without someone else's company, could be your own.
Right? Right?
Regardless of role, you may see something and say, this aligns with my passions, my values, and what you may have historically said as a formal title was your dream job doesn't have to be a formal title or a formal role. It's almost like you have some freedom there to create your own dream job within the capacity that you operate in already. So,
Yeah.
as
I
long as you're
agree.
doing your job 100% on your own independently, I should say, and as it relates to the job description, if there's opportunities to weave in the dream components, why not?
Why not? I'm telling you, like, it's to me, I think it's a great time, right? And when you look at corporations to invent yourself, figure out what it is that you want to be. I agree with you on everything that you said. I think that it's so new. You can create your own job. And here's what I love most about leadership. It is not about a title, folks, because most promotions happen when you do the role you're in great. Do that role great, take on extra projects, and then you're seen. But if you expect to get moved up because you're doing it okay, because all you can think about is that next role, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to get longevity of success. But if you are really focus on doing what you're doing. I don't care what the title is. Most promotions that I ever gave in my role were from people that were in roles that were not even thinking they had the capacity to go to that next level. They were doing it without even knowing they were doing it. I was like, look at you go, whoever. I like what you're doing. Let me give you this project. Let's face it, the higher you go up as leaders, the less time you actually have time to spend with your team. Let's real, because you're on different calls, you're doing all these things. So how do you as an individual contributor, we're going to stay there, individual contributor, get people to see you, do your job great, chime in on what you're passionate about. One thing, Latasha, I always tell people that I coach, because they feel like they've got to speak on every topic in a meeting. They've got to be the loudest voice in the room. I've got to say all these things when it's quite the opposite. You typically get an agenda before you go into a meeting, and there will be topics on that agenda that you are most passionate about. Stick to those topics.
Mhm.
Don't be that person that goes in a room and has to be it all, know it all, be the loudest, say it all, because that's not what people are looking at. They're looking for intentional thoughts, intentional ways to look at something differently that they're passionate about, because you can feel the passion or hear the passion when they're speaking. Don't try to be all things to all people. That goes back to authenticity. So I agree with what you're saying. That's just a couple other tidbits around your point that you're making, which I think is very valid.
No, I love it. I love it. And for those of you who don't typically get an agenda going into a meeting, nothing
Yep.
wrong with asking for one
Yep.
and
Nothing wrong.
and getting an understanding of what your contributions are expected to
Yes.
be so you can add value. So I
Add value.
love that you layered that in. Now, I'm curious, what other unconventional advice do you have to offer aspiring leaders that goes against the typical leadership playbook?
I'm going to say stop trying to be perfect.
Mm.
Perfection is a myth. When the moment you stop trying to be perfect, because when you're perfect, you have self-doubt, all those things tie together. No one's going to tell you this. Stop trying to be perfect. Do the best you can. Bring your authentic self. Have insights, perceptions, whatever. But when you try to be perfect, we've all been there. You're on a project for how long? Because it's not quite right. It's not quite to that perfection level. And that can hinder you more than help you. So it's unconventional, but I would say stop trying to be perfect for all things because we're not. The moment you accept that, the moment you accept that I'm putting everything I got in, and these are great things that I've got collaboration from around me, and you bring it with confidence, that's all you need because nothing's going to be perfect. Whether you're doing, you have to do a review in front of somebody. That's where you see people wanting to be their most perfect self. And that's not, your teams don't follow people who want to be perfect. If you're vulnerable and you say, you know what, I don't have all those answers. Let's work around the room. I am sure there are some talented people in this room that can help me find the answer. That's vulnerability. And a lot of people are afraid to tap into that. But it's what makes teams follow you. It's what makes teams run through brick walls for you. Being vulnerable, being human, being real. Not saying you have all the answers, but relying on the people. That's why you build a team.
Mm-hmm.
You got the people around you that are going to help bring insight and perspective. I hire people that thought different than me, that were not looking, didn't look the same, because that brings a different diversity in
Mm-hmm.
thought. So stop trying to be perfect.
There's at least three things I love about what you just shared there. The first that comes to mind is how sustainable is it to be perfect anyways, especially
Not
perfect
sustainable.
100% of the time.
You can't. It's not sustainable. You're going to go into a spiral, and then it becomes stress, and then people see that, and then you're not being human.
Mhm.
Human connections is what thrives leadership and which thrives teams to do great things.
That's right.
Never say you're the best or the most knowledgeable, because they're not even hiring you to be the most knowledgeable. That's why you hire people around you. They're hiring you for your leadership skill.
That's
They're
right.
hiring you for your ability to drive change, drive teams, do those things. And perfection is not on the list.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then the second thing that comes to mind is the point of diminishing returns. You
Mm,
mentioned, "Hey, I'm still on this project. I'm well past my expiration date on this." Trying to get it perfect when it is not only viable, but it is effective, it is efficient, and it is time for me to move on to the next opportunity. And I always tell people, I'm using the audience, you guys can't see my clenched fist, but
yeah,
I use the clenched fist analogy. If my hand is closed, I can't be open to anything else that's being offered to me because I'm holding on so tightly to whatever is in my hand right now, right?
whatever that is. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
point of diminishing returns, if it's no longer adding value or if the value versus the effort do not make sense, if the math isn't mathing, let it go. Move on to
The
the next
math isn't
opportunity.
mathing. Let it go. I'm telling you, because anyone's going to find something, no matter how perfect you think it is anyway. That's how that's called growth,
That's
So
right.
that's called growth. And I can't tell you how many peers that I've seen that I've worked on projects before in the past, or people that I'm coaching. They just strive for perfection. And I'm peeling back the layers of it's okay to be vulnerable and human. It's okay. Matter of fact, it's gonna
Absolutely.
do you better than it is being perfectionist.
Absolutely. And then to the third point, you're gonna make your team better.
Oh
If
my gosh.
if and you described it, you illustrated it perfectly. If you are trying to be the go-to for everything, what is your team there for? How are they developing? They're
Right.
not. You're not developing because you're not creating capacity for your team to learn how to do the things that they actually need to do, which means you're, investing time, effort,
Mhm.
and a ton of other things into a space
Mhm.
where you could be, projecting that effort and that time and everything else into something that will help build you up as a better
Absolutely,
leader so you can better support your
absolutely.
team. So, yeah, those were the 3 things that were pulsing in my head as you were
Yeah,
describing
yeah.
that. I love that. Now, I have a potentially unconventional question for you.
Alright, let's
So,
hear it.
as we're talking about finding your fire, right? Getting yourself geared up. If you had to create a leadership playlist of 3 songs that embody the qualities of an authentic and impactful leader, what would they be and why?
So, I'm a woman's advocate, so my songs are all centered around women, and I'm gonna say, I don't care how many times you play this, if you get on a stage or if I'm going to work, that song "Roar" by Katy Perry, like, it just fires me up. I can't explain it. A lot of times if I'm talking to somebody, I'll play that song and I'm like, "Yes, let's go." And so that's one. And, my girl Beyoncé, I love her, Girls Run the World, I love that. Like, for me, I get energized by these songs that make me feel powerful. They make me feel powerful. And one that, I don't know, maybe some people do or some don't, but Born This Way by Lady Gaga, I love that song too. So my songs are all about inspiration because I think as we talked about self-doubt, as we talked about all these challenges that we sometimes face, a great song will motivate you. And you heard me say this also, like, I think a great song is great, but literally getting in the mirror saying, I am unstoppable has so much power. It just motivates me, and everybody has their song, everyone has their genre, but I'm more of like motivational songs because every day that I get up, I know that I'm going to help some woman do great things. And to do that, I got to be ready. I got to be ready to roar. I got to be ready to, show my best self because that's the responsibility I have as a coach.
I love it. And if I may, I know I asked you for
Yes.
3 songs, but I've got one that you might consider.
Oh, let me get my pen and write it down. I got it right here.
It's called Brave by Mariah Peters. And
Ooh,
you mentioned courage so many times in our conversation today. I would love for you to listen to it and consider it
I'm going to.
as a
I'm
potential
going
for
to.
your list.
My list can expand. Listen, my list can expand. I'm all about adding some new genres, but I'm a classic girl. I'm like, these are the songs that motivate me. So I'm ready for a new one.
Perfect,
I'm
perfect.
going to download it as soon as we end this and see what I think. I'll let you know. I'll let you know if it motivates me.
Awesome, awesome. Now, as we wrap up today, what is one final piece of advice you'd like to share with aspiring women leaders who are listening and want to make a bigger impact? And men, I will also say again, this is for you too. If you
Yes.
want to create and foster the type of environment that allow women to thrive in the workplace, if you know someone who would benefit from this advice, please listen up as Michelle shares her final piece of advice.
I'm going to end on this. I'm going to end on owning your story. It's so important that whatever walk of life, whether you're male, female, it doesn't matter. Own your story, own your journey, be accountable, and be a student of the business. Because I think when you own your story, it sets you up for everything, even in your personal life. What is your story? What is your journey? I think it's important that we all know what that is because that's what makes us who we are. Because your authenticity is your superpower. You got to own it. And that's what I think is owning your story, owning who you are. Don't let anybody stop you from that. And there are naysayers out there, y'all. There are naysayers out there. It's up to you to own your story, share your story, and make that be the foundation of who you are authentically.
Perfect, perfect. Now, Michelle, I'm not letting you go without you sharing with the audience how they can get in contact with you, take advantage of
Yes,
your awesome wisdom and your services,
yes,
and just how we can
yes.
stay plugged in with all the amazing work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. So get your pens ready. So it's www.mccareersolutions.com. That's www mccareersolutions.com. We are here to help women see their true potential, land that dream job, which we talked about, whatever that is, make more money if that's on your list, but most importantly, do it being your own self. Do it by being authentic. All these things we talked about, nothing more matters than not compromising who you are. I say that again and again and again because it's that important. So www.mccareersolutions.com. You can follow me on Instagram, mic.lance on Instagram, and then follow me on LinkedIn, Michele, 1LE, Lance, Michele Lance on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from anybody out there. Everybody's journey is different. We do it in a way that's unique because it's tailored. It's not like cookie cutter. We listen to what you want to do, we listen to who you are, and then we build around it. I tell you, when I get up every morning, I want to roar. I'm passionate about helping other women. I speak at engagements. Follow me. You'll see where I'm going to have speaking engagements. But most importantly, I'm here for you. I'm here for you from a genuine place. And that's what we build our foundation on, is being there and being true who we are so that you can be true to who you are.
Well, Michelle, I so appreciate the time, the wisdom,
Absolutely.
and the truth and genuine authenticity you brought to our conversation today. I got a lot from it, so I'm sure our audience got even more. Thank you so much for being our
Thank
honored guest
you.
today. And with that,
Thank you so
I am
much.
looking forward to staying connected.
Absolutely. So I'm following you. You follow me, and I wrote the song down, so I'm gonna go download it and I'll let you know.
Perfect.
Thank you.